Let's take you to this live development and event where NC former President Thabo Mbeki is currently addressing the KwaZulu-Natal PTT political school out in Durban. Let's listen in.
When we're young people in the Youth League, what everybody was saying was that as the ANC, we've got a task to contribute to the struggle to end this oppression. I think comrades in this room know this, that when I first volunteered to join the struggle of the ANC, I was 10 years old. It was the Defiance Campaign of 1952. Cousin of mine and myself, we went and volunteered to be volunteers to go and defy the unjust laws. We had to pay 2 and 6 pence to become a member of the ANC. We collected bottles of Coca-Cola and so on and sold them. They used to buy them those days. And so each one of us had raised 2 and 6. And then we wanted to join the Defiance Campaign. The organizers, they declined us nicely. They said, we've got you on our list. When you grow up, we'll call you. But I'm saying, comrades, it was very clear, the task of the youth leaguers, and then as we grow up, the task of the ANC is to make sure that the people end this oppression of our people. At that time, those years, the questions of who leads and so on never arose. And particularly during the period of the banning of the ANC. Because membership meant you had a price to pay. You'd get arrested, get locked up, get killed. So this focus on this one objective, the liberation of our people, is all you were about. Came liberation. You remember the slogan that the movement used, a better life for all. And it was the movement meant that. What the ANC was about was ensuring that the people get a better life. That hasn't changed. In terms of the focus of the real ANC will continue to say, our real task is to ensure a better life for the mass of our people. Of course, in the meantime, there are many, many other people, as you know, who entered the ANC, and the ANC has spoken about this very openly. That once we became a governing party, then we started attracting wrong people. People were interested in membership of the party. Comrade Convener raised this thing this morning when he spoke, not to pursue the objectives of the movement, but for self-betterment, self-enrichment, and things like that. And that's a problem. It doesn't change our focus as a movement, a better life for all our people. I'm mentioning that in part, comrades, because one of the issues that we had thought we would address, particularly tomorrow, but our program got changed for very legitimate reasons, was we've got here, for instance, the CEO of the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, Max Bokwan. Max and the others, and other foundations, they are working on organizing the national dialogue. We had thought that we should reflect on that, give you a report that, so they themselves, the foundations must give you a report about that. What's happening, where are we going? I'm saying that, Comrade Chair, because what's been decided is that we can't discuss that matter tomorrow because of the changes that had to take place. But that does not mean that session is cancelled. It's postponed. They've got to come back, and it was agreed that in addition to just yourselves, you've got to be there, we'll broaden it also to bring in people, not necessarily ANC, because we're discussing national dialogue. I'm raising that, Comrade Chair, because people have legitimately raised questions. People have spoken about poverty, for instance. People are complaining about poverty. They're complaining about crime. They're complaining about unemployment. Very legitimate issues. And the ANC has to take up these issues. I'm mentioning this national dialogue because all of those matters are on the agenda of that national dialogue. And there was a view of the foundations that those matters carries us of such weight. They need more than a discussion by political parties. That you need the people of South Africa to come together to say, what do we do about this problem? Not to complain, not to say we're unemployed, we're poor and all that, but to say what is to be done. And get the people themselves to speak out. We've never done it since '94. This exercise of the right to self-determination by our people hasn't been done. So, for instance, just to give you an example of this, Comrade Chair, what the foundations have done, they've divided the population, the country, into 30 different constituencies, which are the constituencies that must engage this national dialogue. Take one constituency they've identified, which is women. So what would be expected is that there would be an inclusive delegation of women that must then come to the national dialogue to address all matters. It's the economy, it's the politics, security, it's health, it's education, everything. But an inclusive delegation of women. How do you do that? It means going to somebody to say, please, can you put together an inclusive delegation of women? So that no women in the country must say, why were we left out? You can imagine how challenging that's going to be, just to put together that women's delegation. Black women must be there, white women must be there, old women must be there, young women must be there, rural women, urban women. A truly inclusive delegation of women, so that this delegation then will come and discuss all of the major issues on the agenda to answer the question, what is to be done. The political parties will be invited. That's one. So the ANC will get its own invitation as a participant in the national dialogue. So the ANC itself will have to say, what is it that we would say in the national dialogue about these various matters, economy, this and that and that and the other. So I'm mentioning that community, therefore, to say the issue that people were raising. What are we saying about poverty? What are we saying about unemployment? What about saying the poverty? This is the principal vehicle that we had hoped that this year would address exactly those matters. But in an inclusive thing, not just an ANC delegation, but the people of South Africa themselves, to meet and answer those questions. Which is part of the reason that Comrade President Ramaphosa has said publicly that the words he uses, that we'll have to find a way of institutionalizing the outcomes of the national dialogue. By which it means that you can't, once you have the people of South Africa as a whole meet in that format, government cannot ignore what the masses of the people are saying. So this would result in it would impact on the programs that the country must follow. So we are coming back to that. I'm answering the question that's been raised. That the question, therefore, of what is to be done about the specific challenges that are being raised by the people, that's a matter that's very much on the agenda of the national dialogue. And the ANC will be party to that national dialogue, and therefore will help in the process of providing answers as to what is to be done. But I must say, comrades, I listened very attentively to our discussion this afternoon when you were responding to these presentations. I'm very, very glad that we are being honest about the state of the province. That as a movement, as an organization, we recognize the fact that there's a crisis. You can't drop from where we were to this 17% and think that there's no crisis. I'm very, very glad that the comrades recognize that, first of all, that there is a serious problem. To the point where it has been said, but it's even difficult to say when you look around the localities in the province, which one would you say is an ANC base? I'm really very, very glad that we've come to that point, because it means, as part of our political education, we are saying we want to address honestly the nature of our problems, honestly. I must also say, Comrade Chair, I'm very, very glad that for all of these hours that we've been here, we've only sang one song. I'm very, very glad. And truly, you know, I'm told that our Chinese comrades say that over the years they've spent quite a bit of time with our movement. And one of the things that puzzles them is, when does the ANC discuss policy? Because all the time it's singing and dancing. It's unfair. But I'm very, very glad there was only one song today, because we then spend all of the other time discussing the real problems. What is very clear to me, and I haven't conspired with the rest of my delegation here, is that, Comrade Kwazi, let's treat this as first session of political education. I think we're going to need the second session of political education. No more presentations. Based on the basis of the presentations that have been made. So we follow up on all of them, because it's very clear from the things that comrades are saying. Comrades are raising questions. This question, what is to be done? We can't just meet here the whole day and say, well, we met. They want to answer the question, what is to be done? What action do we take? What actions do we take about the renewal of the ANC? And the sense I got, we're all saying, it's a critical matter that we must be attended to. We need to look at this matter about conferences. We are Democrats, naturally, and we want the committees to be elected. But given our actual reality, isn't there a relationship? I heard comrades raising this question. Isn't there a relationship between renewal and conference? Because you can't just say conference, conference, conference. Who are these people who are conferring? So you need to be able to say there's a process of renewal that has taken place. it has produced this kind of member and this kind of cadre. Let them have a conference. Otherwise, you might be repeating, if you reverse that process, conference first. You continue to put in positions of power people who should not even be in the ANC. So, a question has been raised. I am very glad to hear comrades raise a question like that. So it needs to be part of our discussion next time. I'm not saying, Comrade Chair, that you wait for us to come back. I think we should put in place processes of discussion among ourselves. How do we take these matters further? I'm told you are saying now that there's even a proposal that's going to come from this political school to the PTT, our own proposals. That's a very good idea. But I think we need to engage these things ourselves. But as this group that came to make this presentation, this brigade, I think we should come back for session 2 to follow up on this issue, what is to be done about all of these matters, not just renewal. Questions have been raised. Our convener had the question and the proposal was put. Would it be possible for members of the PTT to raise their hands? And people saying, no, don't do it, it'll be too embarrassing. But that's a legitimate question. This province is very critical. It's not critical. It's critical to the ANC, that's true. But it's critical to this matter of a better life for the lives of our people. The leadership of this province has got to get this thing right because of the contribution that this province will make to this task of the betterment of the lives of our people. And therefore, the people who lead us, this PTT, needs to be conscious of that. It's got a very heavy national responsibility. It's not just a provincial responsibility. Because this province owes the rest of the country an obligation. I saw today a negative thing at the sticker tape at the bottom of the television screen. I don't know if you saw. It says the World Bank has determined that the World Bank has determined that the worst performing seaport in the world is Durban. It's today, it's on the news. I was reading that, I was saying, here comes trouble. That's World Bank has made that assessment about Durban. But that draws attention to the critical importance of the quality of the leadership in this room. The leadership in this room needs to change that report so that the World Bank must say Durban is one of the best performing seaports in the world. But that depends on the quality of our leadership. And the question that was being raised, can members of the PTT please raise their hands, was very legitimate. Because we are depending on that PTT and the RTTs to provide the kind of leadership that is required. So, Comrade Chair, I'm going to finish this now. So what I'm trying to say is this. I think we have more or less identified the areas of action that requires action that needs to be taken. Renewal of the ANC, whatever else. And that we say that we are going to try, coming from here, try and persuade the PTT that, PTT, why don't you take on a program like this? But we as people here would want to be part of that machinery which ensures that we actually act. Act in a situation, comrades, where, as I was saying, happily we have said we want to tell the truth about our province. and not paint pictures which are false, but, give hope. But let's tell the truth about our problems, because that's the only way in which we're going to be able to find the correct solutions to solve the challenges. I'm very, very glad indeed that this message came quite strongly from the comrades. With regard to the lecture, Mbuso Kubeka's lecture, I suggest that, comrade, you should write and say that. I'm not promising what response you are going to get, but just write and say, please come and do the Mbuso Kubeka lecture. We'll have a look at it. All right. But comrades, thanks indeed for coming and staying as long as you have, and the contributions. It's a statement we're all making. And the statement we're making, we recognize the challenges of the province. We're determined to respond to them, in the process of which they will re-emerge an ANC which is to the liking of the masses of our people. But more centrally, they will re-emerge an ANC which actually addresses the concerns of the people. That's a commitment that we're making. And I'm very, very glad to hear that. And so I'm saying we want to come back, Comrade Mshengu will come back to be part of the process of discussing the question, what is to be done. As a support team to the PTT, to Comrade Jeff, to Comrade KwaZulu-Natal here, other comrades yourselves, as a support team, to make sure that this province moves forward actually in effecting the changes that are required. I'm saying it's a responsibility of the province to the country, because of the critical role that KwaZulu-Natal plays in terms of the future of South Africa. What you do is important for itself in itself for the province. But I'm saying it's important also for the future of the country. So it becomes a common challenge. We can't say, this is your challenge as people from KZN and so on. No, it's also our problem. It's also our challenge. So we take responsibility together, but from what must happen. But I am really very, very encouraged with the response that everybody has made today. And that's why I'm making this promise that will come, because it's quite clear that coming back into Community Mshengu here, will be coming to engage genuine ANC cadres. Not the ones who just wear T-shirts and sing and dance, but genuine cadres who are focused on this matter. What do we do to change the lives of our people for the better? People think that we're only focused on making the ANC strong and beautiful and all that. Sure, it must be. But the critical matter is the role that the ANC must play to change the lives of our people for the better. And really, I'm saying very, very glad indeed that we had a whole day here with real comrades or cadres of the ANC who are committed exactly to that objective. I think together we will win. Thanks a lot, comrades.
Well, those are live visuals from the Provincial Task Team Political School in KwaZulu-Natal, and ANC former President Thabo Mbeki there addressing those in attendance on various issues on renewal, a core ethical values, not just as the ANC but as the country at large, where he stated that the current leaders need to ask themselves where they went wrong while coming up with solutions, in reference to, of course, the national dialogue, where he further reiterated the need for people's needs and concerns on the ground to be addressed, reiterating that women also need to be at the core as drivers of those particular nation-building conversations so as to be inclusive, an inclusive process. He also advised strongly against self-enriching organizations and individuals being thrust at the helm to champion ordinary people's challenges and advise instead for a grassroots-based and focused type of dialogue that will then lay bare all the current challenges that are faced by citizens on a daily basis. He said the ANC must also admit that they have a crisis, especially in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, and they need to address it, all of its problems, honestly.